So in the last segment, we explored how you could use formative assessment just to kind of know to the level of your students' understanding about a topic. And in this segment or this video, we're going to look a little bit more about how you can use formative assessment to form instruction or inform your instructional choices moving forward. So as an art teacher, I used to think that formative assessment to inform instruction just wasn't for me, right? That's something a classroom teacher can do pretty easily because they have 25 kids and they can adjust instruction to meet those kids' interests or academic needs. But I have like almost 600 kids some years, so it's not realistic or scalable for me, right? But over time, I've discovered that adjusting instruction doesn't necessarily have to be an all or nothing scenario. Like so many things in life, there is a spectrum of instructional adjustments that you could make, and you can move across that spectrum daily as a teacher. Okay, so let's take a closer look at maybe why you might want to adjust instruction in the first place. So here's a possible scenario. Have you ever put time into developing a lesson plan only to have the class yell, "We studied that last year with our other art teacher"? If you're in a district where maybe kids are progressing through multiple art teachers over the life of their elementary career, or you've got clusters of kids that are being served by one art teacher or another, you may not know that a lesson's been pre-taught, and you put a bunch of time into your instructional planning only to find out that it's something they already know. Or maybe it's the same scenario, but you announce a project or you start with the anticipatory set, and then the kids just tell you that it's boring or not cool, or they just maybe are super polite but not engaged at all. Or maybe you start a lesson assuming that they have the needed background knowledge only to find out that there's some significant gaps in their learning and they really can't move forward without some reteaching. In all three of these scenarios, you need to adjust instruction. If they learned something last year, then they need to learn something more advanced this year or build on what they know, right? If they're not engaged, you can pull out all the bells and whistles, but if you see that from the start of a project, it might mean that you need to change your instruction somehow or the prompt somehow to get those kids engaged again. Or if they're missing background knowledge, you definitely shouldn't just plow ahead with the project. You should go back and teach the gaps or the things that they were missing and need to know to move forward. So how can you use formative assessment to identify when and how you should adjust instruction? This resource really walks you through it, and I love these ideas a lot. So some potential strategies. First, you could formatively survey students to increase engagement. So you could, once you know what they are interested in, you could see whether or not topics coming up are something that is going to intrigue them. You could choose themes according to their preferences, or you could switch topics or modify a lesson if they demonstrate a lack of engagement. Perfect example of this happened recently in a 4th grade class. I introduced a 3D weaving project to a group of kids, and one student, I will call him Greg, he is really into certain types of art, but not others. I saw him at the back of the room just put his head down on the desk, and I knew Greg was not into that. And now, it's part of our district curriculum that 4th graders need to study weaving. So what am I supposed to do, right? I can see visually that Greg isn't interested, but luckily I had done an interest inventory at the start of the year, and I remembered Greg's responses super clearly because pretty much all of them were related to dinosaurs. And I know this is gonna sound really corny, but when I started to do my demo on the board, I did one with the slanted lines, like you can see, to create the optical illusion, and I did another one with these zigzag cuts, and I called them dinosaur teeth. And at the time when I drew the zigzag line and called it dinosaur teeth, Greg looked up from the back of the room because suddenly I was talking about something specific that he was interested in. And I knew that, again, because of my formative assessment survey at the start of the year and informal conversations with Greg. And Greg went through and did the whole project without an argument. And then even better, he started to go back and draw dinosaurs on top of the weaving, and it became a much more beautiful piece than I could have ever imagined. You can use that same idea by using a questionnaire to gather information about students' technical knowledge. So you can learn about what their past experiences with a technique or a medium could be. If you are, for example, teaching middle school or another grade level where they came from a previous art teacher, this might be particularly important. You can adapt instructional strategies to meet individual student needs. So you could use a rubric to determine which students are going to meet learning objectives or not, and then you could reteach or break them into small groups based on that. So you're informing instruction because you are targeting certain kids who need a little bit more help. Or the converse, like we mentioned before, they might need some enrichment. Another way that you can use formative assessment to inform instruction is to alter your instructional pacing to support students. So whether you're doing informal or formal formative assessment, you can observe a class's progress and extend a deadline if you need to, or you could offer them some scaffolding like checklists or calendars, and we'll go into that a little bit more in a future video. Or shorten an assignment if mastery is easily reached. If you can see that the students understand and have demonstrated learning, you can even truncate that assignment and help them move on to something they're more excited about, or some more in-depth learning. So those are all ways that you can adjust instruction. And in the next video, we're going to build a little bit on this thing that I just mentioned about calendars and checklists. We're going to talk a little bit about promoting positive executive functioning.